Thank you, Derek. And thank you for joining us today, John. Are you at home?
Yes, I am at my house right now. So it's a beautiful day in LA and excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. And it seems with each passing year, you just seem to get busier and busier, juggling more and more projects. So, what's on your plate right now?
I have a lot on my plate right now. I am in sort of pre-production on Wicked, which I'm doing, which is the musical movie that I'm doing for Universal currently, starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. And so I'm doing that. I have a bunch of TV projects that were up and running that we're about to go shoot. One that we just finished, Thai Cave Rescue for Netflix. That is the kids' story. We got the rights to their stories and their family stories, so I'm excited to do that and show that to the world. And then I just joined in a totally different type of chapter of my life. I joined a company called We, which is an Asian e-grocer where they make deliveries of Asian groceries. I'm the chief creative officer now, so it's another part of my brain. I was surrounded by food as the medium of story growing up in a restaurant, so it feels very appropriate to be sort of coming full circle with that after having done Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, where food was so beloved in those movies, and seeing the power of that actually to work with a company to deliver actual ingredients to your house that you've learned from your parents or your grandparents that you can pass on to your kids seems like a great place to tell more stories through. So that's what I'm doing. It's a lot of different things.
That's amazing. And I think I did read about it, and I will certainly check out
Check it
that
out. Download
company.
the
Yeah.
app.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Um, so
I'm a
with
walking
Wicked, uh, yeah, plug that grocery delivery
Why
app.
not? Why
Um, so with Wicked, did Ariana and Cynthia actually audition for those parts, or were they already connected to this project somehow?
Yeah, they absolutely auditioned. Part of me was like, oh, I want to find unknowns. I want to go out there and see, because In the Heights, Crazy Rich Asians were not unknowns, but a lot of discoveries, a lot of people who hadn't had the platform yet and were the best for the roles. And so for Wicked, that's what I was definitely set out to do. Of course, with Wicked, everyone wants those roles. These are star-making roles. Alphaba and Galinda are huge. And so we didn't just get no names out there. We got also giant stars to come out, and that these songs are difficult. And every single person, there was no easy way in. You had to audition. You had to audition either on tape or with me. And Cynthia Erivo came in, and of course, I mean, there's a reason why she's Cynthia Erivo. When she's in that room and she's singing these songs, it is so moving. It gives totally new meanings to the song. And of course, when Ariana Grande comes in there as playing Galinda, who the Good Witch, who's a very complicated character, and she destroyed us emotionally, and so the two together are so different that potent potion of them together was something that was very exciting, and I can't wait for the world to see what they are together.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So I noticed you didn't really mention the sequel to Crazy Rich Asians on your plate right now. Is there anything you could tell us about it? Is there even a script or any production date set aside? Do we know a release year that you might be aiming for?
Listen, we're working on the script. We've had several scripts, and the bar is high for me to go back. The bar is high for the actors to go back, and so we're just trying to make sure that that lives up to what we want. The world is also changing, and so it has to have the right resonance. And also, the second and third books, by the way, people don't often recognize it, but the first movie is very different than the books. Even though it's the world and the characters, like the plot line's very, very different. and so it doesn't quite match up. So we're finding new solutions of how to make that. Also, it excludes characters that you probably want to see in a sequel. So it's a lot of figuring all of that out. Of course, our actors are blowing up all over. Gemma, in Marvel movies, and Henry becoming a star, and Aquafina becoming a star, and award winner, and all these things. It's just that everyone's working too. So it's well, when the time is right, I'm sure we'll do it.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that. And you mentioned Aquafina. I feel like I can't watch a movie without her popping up somewhere in the movie. It's amazing
Yes,
at how many things she's been in
she
now.
loves to work. That girl loves to work.
Yeah. Well, speaking of busy, though, you have a wife and three kids. How old
Yeah.
are they now? Your kids, not your wife.
I have three kids, all under the age of, well, 4 and under. So it's a busy time. They're all in different phases, and we're not sleeping. So that's why I can do all these things. That's because I have all the time in the world.
So, I mean, is it difficult for you to maintain that sort of work-life balance?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure all the students know, you're trying to grow up in college, and you're trying to figure out your life. You're trying to also not close off the doors to what you may become. You may think you may be one thing, but you're probably discovering new things about you. At the same time, you have to get productions done. And you have to get your movies done. And so that can take over your life. And there are sacrifices that come with that. So there are definitely, it doesn't change as you get older and you have a family. And but the best part is I have a partner in my wife that is so understanding, and we talk everything out. And the pandemic really also helped us carve out time for each other, and it doesn't hurt to have have something like Crazy Rich Asians come out and hit the box office bullseye. So it gives you a little room to sort of choose when you can work and when you don't. So I'm sort of coming around there, but it is difficult, and I think it's mostly not about a choice. It's about if you really do love your job, and I'm sure a lot of filmmakers know this for themselves, that like you love it so much that it doesn't feel like you're going to work. So I'm just including my kids and my wife in that joy. So my kids come to rehearsal and they get to watch dancing, and they get to learn the dances on the side, and they get to come to auditions, and they get to experience what it's like to build a world when they saw the bodega being built or being on the streets of Washington Heights. It's like, I think for them, it's just learning another part of their schooling. It's just a very different type of schooling. My daughter actually
Yeah.
asked my friend the other day, they were watching like cartoons and they were watching Little Mermaid. And my daughter turned to her and said, and my daughter's 4, and she said, where are they putting the camera in this shot? Is it like behind the plants? And how did they get a camera underwater like this? So my friend was very like, this little girl sees the world in a totally different world than others. So I guess it is what it is.
Well, I guess we can look forward to getting 3-star filmmakers in the next generation.
We'll see. I think she just wants to be a princess. So.
Well, the last time you were at the USC Asian Pacific Film Fest in 2017, we showed a clip of your final student project, When the Kids Are Away, and I'd like to show it again. So to set the scene up, a large group of women dressed in robes come dancing into a kitchen, singing about being housewives.
We are the ones who keep it together. We are the thread that remains unseen. Whatever's wrong, it's our endeavor to be the ones who stitch the seams. When the kids and husbands are gone, some of the stress and fear and strife. Making a trip and not for too long. Now is the time we come to life. Mean it with a little love.
it is obvious, even as a student, that you were incredibly talented, and you've had just tremendous success since then, with movies exceeding the $150 million mark, including 3 Step Up movies, Now You See Me Too, G.I. Joe Retaliation, and of course, Crazy Rich Asians. But I want to ask you how you handled it when your movie didn't quite hit the mark. So in 2015, Gem and the Holograms was a box office disappointment, with your worst earnings to date. How did you handle that, and what did you learn from that experience?
Damn, Sky, you're getting deep here. No, I first of all, I only did 2 Step Up movies. The third one I produced, but I didn't
Oh,
direct. And so, Gem and
still
the
an
Holograms.
incredible feat.
It is, yeah, yes. It's been I mean, Step Up continues to go, so it's pretty crazy. I mean, for me, first of all, Gem was not a failure. For me, Gem, I love that movie. I think it stands the test of time. I think anyone can watch it, and if you like it, great. If you don't, fine. All my movies, you can do that too. I'm very proud of that movie. First of all, the movie we made under $5 million. I don't know if you've seen $5 million musicals with 13 musical numbers, that are that elaborate and that well executed. And that's not because of me. That's because of our crew. That's because of our cast. They're so freaking talented. So in my mind, as an artist, I didn't learn a lesson from Gem. If that. In fact, I'll give anyone $5 million and see what they can make in that type of scale. What I did learn is in terms of box office, what does that mean to the industry? What does that mean to me personally? And, we're all trained to believe that the box office is the end all be all. But as you can see from something like West Side Story, the box office doesn't matter. I mean, it made not that much money for however much money they spent on that movie, and it's still appreciated and still loved, and will probably maybe win Best Picture. It got nominated today. So I think for me at that time, when being young and making movies, it was like very difficult to see people's reaction to a box office number when you knew that it had no reflection on the movie itself. But it did help me retrain my brain to remind myself why I make movies. If you're making movies for box office, well, first of all, if you're making movies for box office now, it's just irrelevant. You're streaming movies, so there's no box office to be had there. So that even thinking is out the window anymore. But at the time, it felt like there was a lot of pressure for that opening weekend, and as we see now, it's so fake because it doesn't matter anyway. But so I had to get through that in my brain, and also remind myself, like, if I make movies as an artist, you make something and then you let it off to the world. And what the world does with it is their business, not yours. Like, you can have opinions about your movie all you want, but if they didn't like it or they don't share it, then that's what it is. But you at least did the thing that you came there to do. So that actually gave me freedom in making movies like In the Heights, like Crazy Rich Asians, to not actually be burdened by the weight of, will people go see it? Crazy Rich Asians, if I had that burden on me, Crazy Rich Asians doesn't happen without Gem and the Holograms. Because if I'm too scared to make Crazy Rich Asians, which I was very scared, because it could mean very easily made the same reaction. These days, it seems like, oh, you could make a Crazy Rich Asians. Back then, which was only 4 years ago, by the way, it was impossible. It was like no movie was going to be made like that. And so I really credit Gem to help readjust my purpose and my relationship with my own art. So anyway, after going through that, I can make something like Crazy Rich Asians. I can make something like In the Heights, where you just know there's no proven factor for that. People may show up, people may not show up, but you got to do the work. So I'm very proud to have gone through that experience and count it as a badge of honor.
I think that's actually a very valuable lesson that you've given to aspiring filmmakers out there, that it can be blinding always just to talk about box office when that isn't necessarily the only way you can measure the quality or success of a film. So I think that's something all aspiring filmmakers really need to keep in mind. And I'm glad you
Yeah.
could share that with
I mean,
us.
hopefully that argument is just dead now because you really doesn't like Tick Tick Boom and all these like nobody has box office numbers on Tick and Tick Tick Boom did get released, but it's on Netflix first and foremost. So it didn't, those things are hopefully a dead conversation.
Right. Well, your movie, In the Heights, right? That's the film adaptation of Lin-Manuel Miranda's Tony Award-winning musical. Ended up being released during the pandemic, simultaneously in the theater
Yeah.
and on HBO Max. So I don't know if you'd care to share your thoughts on movies and streaming or what happened with that, but where do you think this is really going for movies?
Well, I think we don't know yet. But for us, it was a very tricky time. We were supposed to come out the summer of 2020. Yeah, summer of 2020. Pandemic hit in March. So that was right, a few months right before our release. So our plans got all shifted. We had to wait another year for our movie to come out. And during that year, movies shut down. Nobody went to the movies. There weren't even movies released. Everything went online, as everybody knows out there. People didn't go to school. And so then they announced the hybrid version of a release, which had not been done, of releasing the movie day and date on HBO Max and on theaters. So now we all knew that the traditional reporters were going to report a box office number that doesn't reflect how many people actually saw the movie because we're giving it away for free on HBO Max. And we weren't selling it the way Disney Plus sells, some of their movies at that time with an extra. I think for Raya, they charged extra. For another movie, they charged extra. So we were just going through transition. I think we're still going through transition. I love cinema. I actually love the game of, I love that we're putting on a show and we got to get people into the seats. And so I like that game, even though it can be a dangerous game. I also love the idea that we share an experience together in a theater and you have no opportunity to turn on your phone and talk. I mean, some people do that, but like you're not supposed to, and you can't just go cook in your microwave while something's happening. You can't pause and come back. Like it is a agreement with the audience that says, we're asking for 2 hours of your time and you're going to pay us for that time because there's value in this time. And we have had this agreement with people for, almost 100 years. And with streaming, it is different. The agreement is different. It's thanks for their money. Here's a bunch of stuff for you to watch. And hopefully you like some of it. And maybe if you don't, then skip it. It's not for you, which is a fine thing. I watch a lot of streaming stuff, but it is a different way of watching something. And in a way, it's and by the way, again, I love streaming. I watch it all the time, but I don't want cinema to die, and I don't think it will die. You watch, Spider-Man, obviously people are showing up. It has to be a different thing now to get people, to compel people to go to the theater. What I'm sad about the sort of change in cinema that I see happening in front of us is the big surprise. Something like a Crazy Rich Asians that changed the landscape of what kind of movies these big studios will put money into, what kind of actors can become a pop culture phenomenon because of it. Those movies won't have the opportunity to surprise people because it will already be relegated to the content side, the side where everyone just gets it and if someone will find it. So that makes me really, really sad because there have been some great surprises in the box office that the audience has found and determined is worth the time, and others that the studios and the people with the money say are worth your time and nobody shows up for. So it cuts both ways. But I'm really, I hope there's a medium ground that cinema exists, and yet there are still chances taken on some of that, because there's still a lot of work to change things. And if we go into our own silos and watch whatever movies we want and it never permeates the bigger culture, I think that that's hurtful for our growth as human beings.
Right. Well, it seems like the only thing that is driving people to the theater right now are superhero movies, and you would think that musical films would be like the next step in bringing people back, but even with West Side Story, that didn't quite happen yet, and I'm really pushing and hoping for Wicked to be that one that really brings the audience back to a non-superhero movie. I love superhero movies, but really there just has to be more in the theater than the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
But the reality is we can only blame ourselves. Like, the reality is it is the audience. And if the audience isn't showing up, I mean, West Side Story was prime example. We made more than West Side Story. We made $1 million more than West Side Story opening weekend. And the fact is people didn't show up. So what's the signal to Hollywood? That's not Hollywood saying, oh, we're not going to do anymore. That's like the audience, us being like, it's not compelling enough for us to go. And maybe that's because it's a remake. Maybe it's because, I don't know, whatever reasons that we may have. But I think we had to support the things that we want to see out there. And there is a tendency now for us to get what we want by a push of a button wherever we are. And that's fair. I just ordered Postmates. I'm down. I'm all for that. But there is a result to all those things, especially in our art.
Right. Yes. Well, speaking of art, you are working on an adaptation. Well, this I read of Dr. Seuss's "Oh, the Places You'll Go," which would be, I think, the first animated feature that you've worked on. So, am I correct? It's going to be released in 2027. Why is this going to take so long?
Well, animated movies take a long time. It doesn't just happen. They usually take like 4 years. And I'm also doing Wicked at the same time, so we figure that it'll match up. But I don't even think we have an official release date. I'm not sure where you got that release date, but it's probably around there anyway. I mean, Wicked itself will take several years, so that's animation. It takes that long, and we're doing it with the Bad Robot and Warner Brothers and the Seuss estate, and so I'm excited. But and sometimes we don't like to announce us getting on board these movies until later in the process. But these days, sometimes information leaks early. And so you get a reaction like, wow, it's going to take so long. And I'm like, well, you're not supposed to know for another year.
Well, I don't know. I've read it all over the place. So everyone seems to know you're doing this. But
yeah, no, they leaked. Somebody leaked it.
You haven't even started. You haven't started pre-production on this then. Has anything started on it? Oh, you have. In terms of
getting the script going, yeah. Not like pre-production. Shoot, it's an fully animated movie, so it's a different process than shooting. We work a lot on the script and storyboarding before we ever start to animate anything. By the way, this is my first. So, I'm learning the process.
Well, and so, I mean, how are you working through those differences in the pre-production process?
We're just in the beginning, so it's not so different other than the where I put my creative time on the project. Like when you're working on a live action, at least what my experience so far is, it's a long process. It's a marathon. So you're getting the script in shape, then you're bringing in the actors and you're working with them and you're designing. And so it's all happening at the same time. And then when you go shoot, all that gets thrown out the window. And then you got to shoot something, and hopefully that it all matches up and you discover new things. And then when you edit, it's a whole nother movie you're editing. With animation, they're not animating a lot and then you have to edit it down. Like they're going to animate what the movie becomes. And so the writing process is a lot longer. The storyboarding process, you actually make the movie, you actually put these storyboards together and show an audience before you animate any of it. And then you rewrite and then you redo it, and that can take years. That could take 2 years, 3 years, and then once you have the movie, then you start to animate. So it's a very different. It's almost a reverse process. Like production is now in a way because you gotta get the movie together.
Right. Wow. Well, I mean, you certainly do have a lot on your plate. And so I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us today and to celebrate API Trojans and entertainment. Your support is both appreciated and very much needed. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And it's always really fun to be here. You know, it's not easy being a filmmaker, as you all know. And it's not easy being a filmmaker that has something new to say and has something important to say in a world where the landscape is changing really quickly and you don't know where your job is coming from. You don't even know where the medium is ending up. So the only thing I can say to all the filmmakers out there, especially you guys right there watching this, is that you're storytellers first. And what your medium of that storytelling can be many different things. It could be commercials. It can be TV. It can be film. It can be streaming. It can be creative directing an Asian e-grocery store. Like you learn story, learn what connects human beings, and then find the medium that speaks to you. It's maybe sound, maybe it's cinematography, maybe it's something you do not know yet. But the problem is we only know it growing up is that, oh, directing. I got to direct. And that has this like sort of shine to it. But at the end of the day, it's like you're a storyteller. So find that medium, be open to what that medium is because things are shifting. All the advice I'm giving you is like old shit. There's a whole new place that you guys are trailblazing. And so hopefully I will follow you and hopefully your stories will push me and we'll do this all together. So we all need each other in this time.
Great. Thanks so much, Jon.
Thank you.